Well, I'm joined now in the studio by Dr. Niki Rust, who is the Technical Wildlife Advisor at World Wildlife Fund UK. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Tell us why this conference is so important.
Well, illegal wildlife trade is the fourth most important illegal trade in the whole world after arms, drugs and human trafficking. It's a serious crime and it needs to be treated as a serious crime. As we've seen in the news recently, it's causing huge catastrophic declines of many elephants, of pangolins, rhinos and other species. It's really important that we act on this immediately.
I understand that things like elephants, some people want to liberalise the trade in ivory, for instance, but a lot of people don't.
Yes, so there's 2 countries in southern Africa that would like to legalise the trade. They currently have stable or increasing elephant populations, and they feel that sustainable trade in ivory would be okay for them, that it wouldn't influence the populations. However, WWF, amongst many other NGOs, do not want to see legalisation of trade because we feel that it will cause catastrophic effects amongst the rest of the elephant populations in Africa.
What about pangolin? Where do you stand on that? I understand it's the world's most trafficked mammal.
It is indeed, yes. It is being discussed at CITES at the moment to be uplisted so that it will have extra protection. At the moment, it's on Appendix 2, which means that there can be a small amount of trade, but we would like it uplisted to Appendix 1 so that there would be an international ban.
So, I mean, based on what I'm hearing you say, that there are lots of disputes that are going to be taking place at this conference. So we can expect some pretty titanic battles and lots of sort of bucking of heads over the next week or so.
Definitely. However, WWF would really prefer if we somehow took politics out of the equation. We don't really want to be arguing about positions here. We want to be there for the animals and for the plant species there. We really want to work together to help save species. So if possible, we really want to leave politics at the door.
Tell us how the numbers of things like elephants have been falling.
They've been falling dramatically. As has been seen in the news recently, it seems like we're losing tens of thousands each year, between 20 and 30,000 each year, and this is due to poaching exclusively for the ivory, particularly going to markets in China. So we really would prefer it if people stopped buying ivory. We don't think that it's a commodity that should be bought at the moment, and we would not like any countries to be
right, but what about
trading
countries like Namibia and Zimbabwe? They've got huge stockpiles of ivory and they say they'd like to sell them. They're proposing that restrictions be lifted so they can sell that ivory. I mean, why is there disagreement on that?
There's disagreement because there is confusion about the data, because it seems that some people think that having sales of stockpiles can reduce poaching of wild elephants, but then some data shows actually the reverse, that it spurs on poaching. WWF would like to take the precautionary principle. We would prefer it that we don't even try to see whether or not this will reduce poaching. We don't want them to do this.
But I mean, it's all very well to protect these species like elephants, but all across Africa, for instance, human populations are growing. They're coming in contact with these wild and endangered species, especially elephants. I mean, how does it affect them to be living alongside these species?
It definitely can do. This is what's called human-wildlife conflict, and it definitely can. It can destroy crops. Elephants can get into people's water sources. They can cause devastation, definitely. However, I don't think that legalising the ivory trade is the solution here. There are other ways around it. We can put electric fences around water sources, around crops. We can pay compensation. We just need to work together to make sure.
Yeah, but saying we can, I mean, it hasn't happened. These people have been complaining about this thing for a long time. Many of them talk about attacks from elephants, people being killed by these animals, farms destroyed, no compensation paid for them. I mean, how much does that complicate the story?
It definitely does complicate the story a lot. I think the solution here, however, is to look at how are we financing conservation. At the moment, we just don't have enough money to be able to afford compensation for all of these people. So we're looking towards donors to help us fund these wonderful measures to reduce the poaching of elephants within these communities.
Right, so summarize for us what sort of decisions you'd like to see taken. I know that's a broad question, but pick the topics that you think should be addressed most urgently.
Sure. So I think the first thing is that we want to make sure that the countries that have got national ivory action plans, the ones that are doing the worst in terms of elephant poaching, that they really act upon these. It's all well and good having something written down in paper, but they really need to start acting on improving their governance and definitely reducing corruption. We also want to see Vietnam do something about its dramatically terrible rhino horn trade. So
now, obviously, it's all well and good to say these things. I mean, I don't know if obviously you've got people there at this CITES conference. Finding consensus, as we said, among 182 countries will be the big challenge.
Definitely it will be, yes. We don't have to have 100% consensus. I think it's just a 2/3 majority. There is a slight issue that we have in terms of of Namibia and Zimbabwe that are wanting to legalise ivory trade. If the rest of the parties go against this, they might actually back out of CITES, and that would mean that they could then trade in ivory legally if they're not in CITES anymore. So we don't want that to happen.
Right, but what sort of compromise are you prepared to make? Because it's got to be a give and take, isn't it? I mean, rhinos, for example, they're also being targeted by poachers, but there are proposals from the likes of Swaziland to open up the sale of rhino horns, and rhinos can actually grow back their horns. I mean, is that a proposal that you're likely to accept?
No, it's definitely not a proposal that we're likely to accept. I think that the proposal that Swaziland put in was a little bit rushed and wasn't thought through. There are lots of problems with legalising the rhino horn. It can spur on demand, and we don't want to do that because, again, that can result in poaching.
Okay, Dr. Niki Rust from WWF, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.